But I think honestly, like to surrender to the solution for me now is a lot of trust, right? It's a lot of like really, I know that I've laid down a certain amount of routine, things that I do on a daily basis to sort of surrender, and I trust that if I do those things, for the most part, I'm gonna have a day filled with a connection to something greater than myself that will hopefully guide me through the day. Like whether that's, higher power, spirit, vibration, whatever you want to call it, right? Like it's the highest version of myself. And so surrendering to the solution for me now is just a lot of acceptance, right? Like just accept that this is what is and move the fuck on and like get over it. Because like like whining or wanting it to be different is not going to change it. And you've been down that road,
Right.
you know where it leads. The experience is use that experience, or I use that experience to hopefully prevent me from doing it again, or descending down that road again. And so, the reason why we wanted to talk about this was because I was just having a conversation with you, and I was like, I'm doing this thing right now. I'm on this sort of diet and working with a personal trainer, and like I'm really settling into it, right? But I had to get to this place with it where I almost fucking caved, man. Like I found myself in a situation where, I kind of was thrown into some work stuff unexpectedly, and then some additional work stuff happened on top of it, and I was far from home, and yada yada yada. There was just all these different things that were making it difficult to adhere to everything that I had to do that day, right? And like my mind, dude, the fucking addict is talking to me, dude, coming out swinging, just telling me, dude, like, today's the day.
Yeah.
You gotta give in today.
Give in.
Go on. It's gonna make you feel better. You had a bad day. Just do it. And so, but in that moment, I called my AA sponsor. I was like, dude, like this is sort of what's happening, and it was good for me to talk about. Like regardless, I could have probably called anybody in that moment. You know what I mean? Or at least anybody I know, because luckily I surround myself with a group of people that understand how that feels, but anyways, so I sort of had to get through that moment. And there were days leading up to that day where I was also very tempted, but didn't, but that day was the worst. I went home, I didn't give in, I ate the food I was supposed to eat, I went to bed, I woke up the next day, and I immediately hopped on the scale. I was like, last night was rough. I got to know that this is working. And I hopped on the scale and I saw, like some positive results, and I was like, okay. And it seems like every day since then has been much, much easier, much more relaxed. And I've settled into it to now it's like, this is just how it is.
Right.
And I was telling you that it seems like there's just this switch that flips in my mind that is no longer having to push through so much resistance to do all this stuff, or white knuckling is what it feels like, right? And it's just sort of accepted and surrendered and given into this sort of way of life for
right.
now, and we were trying to come up with like, well, what is that when that switch flips? What is that, And it feels like, well, it's surrender on some level. And the thing is too, is I remember a very, very similar situation when I was using drugs and alcohol. Like I think I was 1 month sober and I had an abscessed tooth, and I was freaking out, dude, because my face was swollen and I was in a hell of a lot of pain. I called my dentist on a Thursday and he was unavailable until Tuesday. He was out of the state, and of course I'm just like, I got to get something for this pain, and that was my drug of choice.
Right.
And so, like I talked to his nurse, who who basically said, well, I can talk to the dentist next door and see if he can maybe write you a script for Percocet or something, like, until the doctor gets into town. And I'm like, no, it should say in my chart. It should say, because I tell everybody, right?
Right.
I tell everybody that, like,
It's a safety net.
yeah, exactly. Like, just so you know, I'm a recovering alcoholic addict, and I should not. Don't give me pain pills. Is basically what I say. And I said it should say in my chart. And she said it does. I just figured if you're in pain. And it was just like
bless her heart.
Yeah, exactly. It was just very well meaning.
Yeah.
Another reminder though, just how some people don't understand. But again, another situation where I'm just like, my mind is just justifying the hell out of it, right?
Yeah.
Had a sponsor at that time. I called him and talked to him about it, and ended up, I think, really like to take my mind off of it. I like exercised my way through it, and somehow I made it through that. And after that moment, nothing else felt as tempting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like after that moment, it was like, well, if I can get through that, I can get through this.
Yeah.
And so, sort of the same thing, that's just how it feels. It's like some sort of switch flips, and I have now surrendered to the solution, no longer living in the disease.
Yeah. You kind of build on your successes.